the good word, brother.
Happy Monday post-Easter.
Monday post-Easter, and what a glorious couple of days.
Man, no kidding. After Saturday, which was borderline winter-esque,
yeah,
at least here, it was like what? It was like in the low 40s and rainy.
Yep.
And very cool too. Yesterday we had a blistering day of better get your heat acclimation in quick. We are ready for summer, and I think it's going to be 80 again today, and pretty much 80s here in Nashville the rest of the week.
Yeah, I don't know if it didn't have that humid feel either, which maybe it did, but to me it was just like perfect out there.
Yeah, it was pretty solid. It was like Allie and I ran yesterday morning together, and it was where we run. It was from my mom's house. It was interesting because we went down Belmont, so we were those people like not at church. We were like dodging the Easter goers and the egg hunts, and people were kind of giving us the side eye. And then we went down one of those side streets and went to come back on 12 South.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from being the condemned runners who aren't going to church to the fit people who are out running early instead of starting their day drinking on 12 South.
Oh, there was
yeah, because we went
2 blocks away.
Yeah, like 2 blocks, like a parallel street over. That's like 1 block. You know how it is, and on that strip, it's just like, I mean, we ran at like 10, so everybody, like, everything was open early. It's perfect day for if you drink, to be on the patio enjoying some beverages. But that's how you spend your Easter. But so yeah, we got to be shamed on one end for not attending church on Easter morning, and then we got to be shamed for our fitness on the other street. So it was interesting, but it was a great day. It was a little bit warm, but like you said, it wasn't super humid. It was a really, really great day to be outside. Yesterday, and we hung out with family, and I don't know how I feel about this, but I feel like Hayden is like taking up golf.
He's taking up golf?
Listen, man, I'm telling you, with a golf club in his hand, which he loves, he smacks it. And the thing about it is, he doesn't even use the broadside; he uses the tip.
Well,
so he aims with the tip of the putter, not like the broad, like you're supposed to putt with, and just smacks it.
He's going to be a trick shot artist.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's probably our bet to pay off college is right there, is to make him a trick shot golfer, or a YouTube sensation. But yeah, it was solid. How was your day?
It was excellent. We should tell you we're coming from Nashville, Tennessee, in case you wondered about the climate.
Yeah, yeah. So if it's still cold where you are, think about moving.
Yeah. So, great day. Great day to get outside.
Did you hit the lab?
I did hit the lab. Training's going fairly well. I ran first. I had a long run, and since I skimped a little on my Saturday bike with all that cold gloominess, I went out and did a reverse brick, which I have to tell you is feeling outstanding. A little bit of a active recovery after the run on the bike, and it was outstanding.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of
that.
I'm a huge fan of the reverse brick. It takes a little bit for athletes to kind of buy into it because they're so ingrained for no reason other than just herd mentality to just think that bricks are like the end all be all. And I'll write either, something like 35 minutes in the PM, so like at least 6 hours later after your morning ride, so it's not a brick, it's just same day, or I'll put in or right before run. And they're like, wait a minute, why am I running before the bike? That's not triathlon. You run after the bike. And I'm like, well, for me, the return on investment is like so minimal to almost a negative return for a lot of athletes that run off the bike. And their body's already super fatigued. They already struggle with probably really good run form, so that they go out there and they smash and they're super sore the next day, and it really just makes their run just not super quality. But if you can run beforehand, your bike. It rarely ever impacts your bike in a negative way. Obviously, if you're going to go do mile repeats or Track Tuesday, yeah, it probably will. But if you just go out for like a 30, 40-minute run, or even like an hour before a ride, it might take you 30, 35 minutes to kind of get loose. But after that, you're good. Or most people are. And generally, this time of year, if you're a couple weeks out from a big race like you are and like a lot of other people are, that's usually par for the course anyway. And that's like something that, especially this time of year, I have to really remind athletes is that the longer you're in a build and the more consistent you are with training, and when you're not taking, a day off once a week or twice a week, and you're just super consistent, it's going to take you for runs 20, like if you're doing an hour run, it might take you 30 minutes to even like feel like you got your legs underneath you to where you can like, make stride and hit your efforts. And then same thing with like on the rides. Like if you're doing a longer ride, like 2.5, 3.5, 4 hours, I like to tell athletes, don't even look at your watch for like the first hour. You just need to use that as like saddle time, spin the legs out, and then you'll start to feel better towards the end of it. It just takes your body a longer time to wake up when you start to build up fatigue. And so there's a lot of benefits to it, and I think more athletes should do that than these brick sessions off the bike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was 100% just doing it to kind of move around the lactic acid and just take it easy and sort of take an edge off of it, because I was an hour and a half run and I did a bunch of hills, and I just didn't want to feel sore today. And I thought, well, sometimes when you get out there and you just spin that bike afterwards, it's just a real, because again, like you said, I mean, one of the biggest challenges when you're in these build phases is getting back and going at it tomorrow. And I've got a fairly tough run going for me today, and I just was thinking all about that. And how can I improve and increase my recovery time, or shorten it, I guess.
Yeah, it's shorten it. And I think that's something that a lot of athletes, and if you didn't know, for those athletes, this is the Crushing Iron podcast. We jump. This is like not par for the course for us. So I want to apologize first to our listeners that we rarely ever jump into a topic so quickly. We usually give you at least 10 to 15 minutes of borderline nothing.
Yeah.
So we want to apologize for over delivering today off the bat, and we promise to catch you up on talks about team sports and basically nothing at the end of the podcast. So stick around if that's your favorite part of the podcast. But adding in something is because it's just funny how athletes think that it's like common sense for a day totally off, or I got done with my run, so I'm going to go sit all day, as making your legs somewhat better off for the next day. Because then you just sit in the fatigue and the damage that you've created. That's what you do when you train. For harder workouts or longer workouts, like you're damaging your muscles, and they repair themselves so they can prepare or be prepared for the next session. That's how you get bigger, stronger, faster, and you create more endurance. So it's been like so much not common sense, but it's been, again, that like herd mentality of, yeah, you got to take a day off before your race, because you got to get rested. And I can't tell you how much not a fan of I am of the day off before a race, because you're just telling your body it's time to shut down and to be stale, and to put yourself in repair mode, not race mode. Now, it's okay to have a day off during the week, but day off before the race, I cannot be more against that. But having said that, back to what you were saying, like especially if you're an athlete that's done like a super long run early in the morning, there is nothing better for you than maybe a light walk or a super easy active recovery spin later on that day, just to like because what you want to do is you want to create blood flow and circulation to help move all of that waste and damage that you've done to your muscles and your body through your blood, so it circulates through your heart and throughout your entire body, and it gets rid of it. That's what you need to do. That's what, and instead of just sitting in it and kind of letting it set in. And that's why and most athletes tell you that while it didn't feel good, and it doesn't feel good probably the first 20 minutes, after it's over and the next morning, most athletes, if not all, will say, you know what, that was a good idea. I can totally see why this is a benefit. I already feel looser. My body's a little bit fresher, instead of just sitting around and being stale. And then what's going to happen is the next day it's going to be even more difficult for you to pick it up and get right back into a rhythm, or a rhythm that's going to feel good.
Yeah, because man, it's a fine line, right? If you can just help a little bit, that helps you get out the door the next day. To me,
Well, yeah, and you're not sacrificing a workout. Depending on what, it shouldn't be a solid anyway. But again, it's about building blocks and putting them together.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, there's always that kind of like, ugh, I don't want to work out today. But if it can kind of just be, I don't really feel like it, but it's not bad. I mean, there's just those little things that you can do the day before that can really pay off. And it's so much easier when you're in the mode. Say you just got done with a run or whatever, and you're kind of still walking around in your gear, and you kind of loosen it up or whatever. And I just
you don't want to change and hit the couch.
Right, yeah. So
you're definitely not getting
exactly, man. And I sort of put down like this. I was like, well, I probably depleted myself out there running pretty good, but I just, instead of like cooking up a big meal or whatever, I just kind of put down a protein shake kind of deal with a banana in it, and I just sort of let that sit for a minute. And I just went out and rode super easy, and like it's totally exactly what you said too. By the 20-minute mark or whatever, I just started feeling like, no, I feel like I didn't, but I felt like I could start to push it a little bit, and it just started feeling really good. And the run was washed away, which is a huge part of it.
What do you mean the run is washed away?
Well, the run was washed away. The feeling of
yeah.
Of like you just did an hour and a half run, and you kind of got a little bit of that gait, soreness and that limpiness or whatever. And I don't even feel like I ran yesterday.
That's the name of the game.
That is the name of the
Building
game.
blocks. Listen, and I think we have a podcast called this too. It's about links in a chain, and it's about connecting them. And so what you don't want to do is just create these links and then stop and let one rust, by sitting around and not taking care of your body. And another thing is, I know we've like harped on this, but apparently it's not getting in everyone's head, is how much you've got to start changing. I think like we're in this, and I wanted to like touch on today of like a few athlete pitfalls that are fairly common. They're not probably a podcast within themselves, but there are a few things like the when and the why and the how about getting massages this time of year, pains on the bike that or pain from the bike that leads to you feeling pain on the run, and it's not actually your run, it's actually your bike that's making your run painful. It's incredibly common. And then the other thing, and we talked this before, I think once a week for like the last 2 or 3 weeks in our Monday and Thursday podcasts, are the like perfect storm right now that is the difficulty of fueling and hydration. So just a quick reminder of, not only are so many athletes increasing their durations and going out for longer rides right now because they're getting close to a big race here at the end of April, May, June, whatever it is. A lot of athletes have put in a lot of hard work, and you've put in a lot of hard work over the winter and the fall to get ready. And the fueling and the hydration that you have to do during the day, not just within the workout or before and after, but all day long, before you work out, during your workout, and then especially on the recovery part of your workout, is you can get by. You can skip one here or there. You can just not make it a priority. You can be in a rush, and the weather's cool, and you're not going to feel it, and volume's low and intensity's low. Now, like I said, it's like the perfect storm. You're building up volume. You're going out on longer rides that are outside, and now, like you said, like here, it's going to be in the 80s all week, and it's getting quite warm. So your body goes from what? Wait a minute, what is this heat that we're having? I mean, heck, I think for some of the athletes that we work with in Kentucky, it like snowed Saturday or something, and then like today and tomorrow it's going to be like in the 70s and 80s, and so and they'll go out for rides, and A, it's hotter than it normally is. B, you're on longer rides than you normally been. C, the intensity might be a little bit higher as well because you're getting closer to race day. D, you haven't been outside probably but once or twice this entire year, so your mind is more on staying upright on the bike and focusing on the roads and the people and not wrecking, so you're not going to hydrate as usual, and so you just totally forget. And all that can lead to, like we talked about with like what the importance of adding in an hour easy spin after a hard run, how that will complement you for the next day. Well, the reverse is true when it comes to not fueling and not hydrating properly. if it's setting like a timer on your cell phone or something on your GPS bike unit for your bike to remind you to drink during, there are things you just have to do right now in this time of year to get back in. Just basically creating a new habit and a new routine of what it's going to be, of what your body is going to require in order to perform at a much higher level and demand within not just a higher level within itself, but a higher level in terms of what it's going to have to adapt to with the heat, which as you know, like here in Tennessee, it's just going to get hotter. Like it's just going we're on track for what'll end up being 80s, 90s with super humidity, and so it's when it happens overnight like that, your body doesn't really have that time to. And you're not outside every day, doesn't have that time to adapt, and it can lead to you digging a hole in one workout that's going to affect you for 2 to 3 days. And so definitely need to stay on that, and then doing the little things like recovery spins and things that, like you said, aren't something that you're gonna feel like you're getting a lot of social credit for, in terms of doing it. And you're not going to look back on race day and be like, man, today was a great day, I really hit this race. And you know what, man, I tell you, it was all about that 1 hour recovery spin in the lab after that long run. This really set me up for success. It's never going to be those. Yeah. That's the thing about those sessions and hydrating and nutrition and because it is. It's like the boring, the quote unquote boring sessions you do are probably more important than the other ones.
Yeah, because
if not more important, because you do them more often, and even though they might be boring to you, it's just those are the things that you don't talk about on race day or after race day, but they're the ones that make the biggest difference or can have the most negative effect.
I feel like we should create our own medals for those instead of get Training Peak medals for recovery spins or whatever. But we should kind of do that because let's face it, man. The thing of it is I think a lot of people get into especially like a bigger block or whatever, and even not necessarily that, but just like some tough when training gets tough or whatever, and they're ignoring those types of things, the hydration, the fueling, the recovery, the real recovery stuff, then it's kind of like easy to look at the sport and go, man, this just doesn't, I don't know if this is really good for me, because if you're going to play this game, you got to play it within the boundaries and the rules, you know what I mean? Because if you're not going to do the smart stuff, the little things, the stuff that nobody notices, the stuff that, you're not going to get social points for, then it's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher. And you hate to dig that kind of hole, because in the long run, if you can pull it together and play it smart, you're going to be way better off for it. But sometimes you get in a loop of like overexhaustion, like sit out for too long, come back in, and then it's just sort of this weird cycle that you can't dig the hole out of, So
we love to never really recognize the cause, but we always obsess about the effect. I nailed this workout today and it was great, yet I don't look at the few days beforehand and what allowed me to do this. Because I think, as athletes, and some of the athletes I work with give me crap a lot of times. They're like, is there any intervals today in this? Like, where are my intervals? This is so boring. I'm like, yeah, well, this is the stuff that allows you to do the intervals. And these are the sessions, the zone 2, the anything under 75% for most people. Like, that's where the science says, and that's where the experience I have had working with athletes is that the majority of your training should be. And the only way you're going to make your intervals be any good or of any value is to do a lot of your time at that lower threshold. And it's just you're working engines, you're working systems, and you can't just you can't just go out and try to break the chassis every day and expect it to be worth anything when it matters. And although it's not exciting, then you go out and you hit these huge sessions or whatever, and you're like, man, I killed today, I wish I could have more of these. You're like, well, you can't, and the only reason you had this today is because of this. But we don't like to look at like I said, like we don't like to look at the causes. We just like to look at the effects, and we don't like to break down the small things that, the prehab and the mobility work and the fueling and the hydration that are so obvious in terms of how it affects your day-to-day life, how it affects your training, how it affects Maddie, how it affects your she's all, Maddie knows all about nutrition. You eat the same thing every day, twice a day, and you live a good healthy life. I mean, I think we talked about the simplicity of dogs before.
The simplicity, yeah. And the irony might be this might be my Amazon nutrition delivery guy.
Oh man, you're hopping on the. There
No,
you go. Small businesses out of the way. Take note, people. Amazon.
I was just saying, hey.
What kind of nutrition did you get?
I can't remember.
What do you mean you can't remember?
You know how Amazon is, man. You just order stuff.
That's not how it works. That's not how I roll. You know what?
Come on.
Let's have a live unpackaging here. Go ahead.
It's not that. It's not what it was, unfortunately.
So
Actually, no.
You're a guy that has multiple Amazon deliveries a day.
Yeah, just like it's just sort of a methodology to cure loneliness, really. It's like you order stuff, and then people come to your house the next day, and you get presents. That's what
it
we
can
do
be.
now.
It is. It's kind of a very cheap ROI on social interaction because today you don't really have to have it anymore. It's a good kind of like entry level triathlon training actually as well for the introverts out there.
You go to the site, you just push a button, and then all this stuff happens, man.
Yeah, you get this new gear, you get some new nutrition, and you get a new friend for about 30 seconds who can care less about your life. But that is Amazon. So.
Oh no, it's a book. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because I think these two are very, well, they're always important, but I do definitely want to talk about massages.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks that they are like the end-all, be-all, that they are the cure for all things, and they're going to make you feel incredible for race day, and they will enhance recovery. Even though there really is no research out there that I have seen, or if you've seen it, I would love for you to email it to me, that shows that actual like sports massages increase recovery. What they actually do is it's almost like a placebo effect. It gives you the feeling mentally of an enhanced recovery because you're taking part in a process that feels like you might not be less sore or you might have less knots, but that also doesn't directly correlate to being totally recovered because our systems and our body is more complex than that. But there are a lot of ways you need to look and address and plan massages.
They could be, I mean, depending on the type of massage you could get, it seems like it could do more short-term damage, maybe.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, all right.
There is nothing worse for you to do from a massage standpoint. And again, this is why I am not a fan of getting like the post-race massage. Because what happens is, and unless you're like incredibly familiar with your masseuse, you need to really apply great judgment to the when and the how strong your massage is. So the last thing you want to do is schedule for me. So I'm going to look at me personally and what I'll tell athletes that I work with to do. If you're scheduling a massage and you feel like you got to have one and it's going to make you a greater athlete and really enhance recovery, then you want to have a super easy day that morning. So your body's really relaxed. You haven't done any muscle damage, something like an easy ride or a super short run or a swim. Then you want to go in later for, a soft and medium massage. If you're going to get a hard one, you want to do something even easier earlier that day. And then the next day, you want to be just as easy, if not easier, or totally off. You don't ever want to anticipate having a huge, deep tissue, deep, hard massage, and then feeling like that's what's going to make you ready for the next day. Because they are absolutely demolishing your body. So you never want to for me, in the athletes that I work, like I said, I basically consider a massage a hard workout. If you're going in to get like a really, really deep tissue massage, because it will leave you torched for sometimes a day or two. And what you definitely don't want to do is get a massage and then go train right after it thinking, oh man, my body's all square, here we go. Worst idea ever. So hard massage needs to be easy in the morning, and then the next day needs to be either totally off or super easy just to kind of work things out. Or if you're getting like a really light massage, you need to get it still on a day where there's a lighter session and the next day a lighter session, but you never want to absolutely go in and get a really deep massage and then try and work out later on that day or do a hard session the next day. It's counterproductive. It's not good for your body. And then I can't tell you how strongly I am against like even a week of the race massage. Especially if you're not, because a lot of people will go and purchase a massage like the week of a race or 2 weeks out with this totally random person who may not know their body or know what they're doing. They may have heard of a triathlon. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know your body, and they may go in and give you and I've had people say like they come out feeling worse after these massages. They have tweaks, they have niggles that they didn't have before, and they end up worse off. Like 2 weeks out, like 10, 12 days out is usually the closest I would go, because by then, like, again, it's not enhancing your recovery. Like, you're probably better off going for like an easy spin and hopping on the foam roller.
Or Robert Kraft massage.
The Patriots to do it the right way, huh?
Sorry.
But you have to be careful and you have to hydrate. So again, like if you're out there with
man,
and hydrating, and even they'll tell you like here's a bottled water. Like this short bottled water is going to keep you hydrated for the rest of the day after you probably sweat it out during a massage. But seriously, I'm not a fan of the week of massage. Definitely not a fan of like the day before massage at like the expo from some random Joe. And then just know who you're working with, and it's always better to err on the side of caution. Always go lighter on the pressure. And then again, don't anticipate trying to feel really, really, really good the next day. There are, I can think off the top of my head of 2 instances where professional athletes have pulled out of races because their massage like pulled a pectoral muscle or pulled something else because they were trying to work out the knot so hard. Again,
Jesus.
A really deep massage is deep work and damaging to your body to release these knots that you feel like are so essential for. Again, it's mostly placebo and perceived relief in what it's doing for your body versus actual science back. This is going to make me perform better.
So, is there anything along that lines that's better? I mean,
most people will tell you that if you have like a sports, like a physiotherapist or someone who does like something more on the lines of like active release therapy, so somebody who does like ART. But again, like this, it has to be targeted and specific to where they're not like. They need to know what they're doing. They can't be somebody over at Massage Envy who got their weekend certification in massage that's going to go in and damage your body that's been basically under load and under fatigue for the last 6 or 8 weeks. Most of those, masseuses are more experienced dealing with like, Joe Schmo coming off the street who's had a stressful week, taking his kids to the soccer practice twice versus an athlete who's been training under an enormous amount of load, who may or may have a previous injury history. So there are specific areas you can go and people you can talk to and look to address certain issues that you have, but it needs to be targeted and specific. It doesn't mean to just be like a broad, like, we'll do your back legs for 20 minutes, or your front legs 20 minutes. Oh, look, time's up, man, we're done. It needs to be, and that's why you'll probably end up paying more for a massage therapist or a sports physio. And again, what they'll do a lot of time is more on getting your body lined up and loose and doing longer, deep stretches to get everything back in alignment, so you're not more apt for injury than when you're going to go out and train than it is really working on these deep massages.
That sounds like more like off-season kind of setup work. Get your body in the right place to actually go out and do the stuff before, trying to correct something a week before the race. I mean,
just say you've had a car for 12 or 13 years and you want to take it to some random Joe who's never looked at or doesn't know anything about your car, and you want them to fix this like really important part. You're gonna be like, you're gonna be hesitant because it's like you have no trust, you don't know what's going on. But again, just be careful with, and don't just, again, it's like this. like so many things in life and society is like you just do it like blindly without ever asking question about, you know what, should I really even be doing this? Like, oh, massage race week, that sounds like something that's going to really benefit me. You know what? I think I'm going to do it. Instead of asking like, well, maybe this isn't a good idea, because let's think about all things that should go into a massage, and then how deep do I want? Oh yeah, the deeper you go, the more they're fixing. Yeah, tell me how you feel the next day, and tell me if you actually feel ready to race. Like, listen, like a light pressure, like relaxation, quote unquote, massage. Sure, have at it, because again, it's not doing anything for you, and from a performance standpoint, is it going to make you feel more relaxed, and are you just kind of rewarding yourself? Have at it. But in terms of like how it's going to affect you directly in your sports performance, it's not. Your perceived recovery is one thing, but actual recovery is another. But if you see, like, a lot of athletes will see a chiropractor, a lot of athletes will see someone who's going to give them adjustments. I'm not a huge fan, but that's just me personally. But you need to know who you're working with and have created some kind of established relationship to where they know the purpose of what you're doing and how close you are. And most of them will tell you, because in the past that I've worked with one very closely, like, they would even tell you, you know what, how far away is your race? Okay, well, it's a week out. All right, it's probably better to not go deep today. It's probably best that we do something very, very, very light. And they're not all like that. So just be very, very careful, because again, this is that time of year where races are coming up. People are trying to get their bodies in working order, and they'll just kind of do things just to do it. And they'll feel like, more is always better, deeper is always better. They're really working those spots. And so just be very careful. And again, if you're going to get a deep one and you feel like it's going to benefit you a lot, or it's been suggested that you get one, and like, I guess going back to your point, if you have a specific area of your body that's giving you trouble, like an IT band or your shoulder or whatever, that's when it's important to go see someone who has the experience in that, is very familiar with the body and what your specific ailment is. Not like, hey Jill, my thighs are sore, let's come in for a 60-minute massage today. You need to go in, because I have athletes that will occasionally have a calf niggle, something in their quad, something in their IT band, shoulder, whatever, and a lot of times they'll go see a physical therapist. That knows the restraints that they're dealing with, knows the demands they have with training, knows exactly what they need to hit, and I feel like this is the way physical therapists work, is like they're about long-term success and sustainability. They plan on seeing you again and again and again, not, hey, see you later, next in the door with some, basically, they're going to give you the same massage for every single person they see today. Mm-hmm. Versus if you have a specific injury or a specific part of your body that you need to address, they're going to, give you hopefully some relief, but then most importantly, what they're going to do is they're going to give you exercises or specific things that you need to do at home to strengthen, so they don't ever have to see you again after a few weeks. Because that's the name of the game. You don't want to have to rely on these people every single week for the rest of your life, or every month for the rest of your life. That you want to find a physio or a physical therapist or a chiropractor, whoever it is you feel comfortable seeing, that they're going to say, you know what, hey, here is your pain. Let's try to get you some momentary relief. But if we're going to look at getting you perfectly healthy for the long term, you're going to need to do X, Y, and Z to be healthy, to strengthen these other muscles that are surrounding the part of your body that is an issue. Because if we don't do that, then you're going to have to keep coming back in here. And again, that goes back to what we're kind of touching on in the beginning of it. It's like those small things that add up, that you may not want to do those PT exercises, but I guarantee you, and we work with so many athletes who will tell you that, like, once they start doing them, they stick with them, they see huge gains. But then again, as soon as you kind of get lazy on them, guess what comes back?
I know, man.
Hey, so it's just those things. Like, once you start, you can't stop, and you have to stay on it, because but again, you forget the cause, and you're only about, see, I feel great today, I'm good. Wait a minute. The only reason I do feel great today is because I've been doing all these exercises so many days in a row that I'm strengthening my hips to a point to now where, my quads feel much better, they're not so tight. Mm-hmm. And then they feel great for a few days. So what do? I'm good. See, I'm totally back. Wait a minute. that's not how it works.
No.
And so again, it goes back to just paying attention, questioning, thinking through, what do all these small things have to do with me and my ultimate goals and my performance and my ability to stay healthy and train? And while they might not be fun, while they might not be exciting, while they might not be, get the social, cheers, they're what's going to allow me to be successful and continue to do this healthy for as long as I possibly can and do it injury-free.
Mm-hmm. Well, I always talk about balance and those dynamic sort of run warm-up kind of exercises and things like that, because we all have probably a dominant side and just dominant, either it's legs or arms or whatever. We're just kind of leading with whatever. And I think once you do these little warm-ups, that everyone kind of, I think, believes on some level that they're good, but they just, like you said, they just kind of, I don't need to do that or whatever. I think it's just a good practice to warm up both sides of your body so your weak side is kind of firing a little bit, and then you don't overuse the strong side. Mm-hmm. And, back to this idea of massage, and, massage, like you said, therapy is sort of this kind of connotation of more of a, like, work it in over time and sort of a practice, especially with massage. If you want to kind of work some kinks out of certain places or whatever it might be, that's a long-term process, man. I mean, people talk to me a lot about yoga and meditation because I bring it up on here. And it's like, man, I need to start doing some yoga this week before the race. I'm like, dude, no. Like, because
you're going to get hurt.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that people, it's like massage and yoga and meditation are all sort of like I think perceived as sort of this chill kind of like, nice, relaxing sort of thing. But yoga, man, especially if like to the point of the wrong therapist, if you get in the wrong class, that can really screw you up in a hurry. If it's if it's something that moves too quickly or you're not ready for it. And then what ultimately happens every time, I do yoga, I have to really, it's the same thing with like recovery workouts. If you get into a yoga class and you're like, oh, I feel good today, I'm starting to stretch it. And then you just always push it too far. And they always say, stay within yourself. And they really mean that. But that can really cause problems. I've been in and out of yoga a lot. And usually that's what happens to me is I go too hard. And the next thing you know, I'm not saying it might not be the good thing if I could stick with it, but to combine it with what we're doing for training and all these, the load that comes with that, and then you're cranking your spine all over the place, and you're creating all these soreness and inflammation everywhere, and it might be in a healing process, but when you combine that with training for triathlon, it doesn't really have a chance to heal, and then it can create even worse problems. And honestly, the same can go with meditation. I think if you sit down, and I think meditation is always good if you sit, but I think it's one of those things you got to take really slow too, because if you sort of pour your heart into that, shit starts coming up, and it can cause like a lot of energy release, and your body can get really tired, and it can create sort of like, and accentuate maybe if you're struggling with workouts and you're kind of down or whatever, it can make it even worse, I think, if you're not careful. It's a long-term practice.
But who wants to take time?
I know.
It's again like
nobody does today.
Nobody does. And there's just so many areas of, and I have to have this discussion with the athletes. Like it's like we're obsessed with not being totally aware of everything that's going on in our life, and that we're in fact at like our critical mass. And so if you're an athlete, like what you talked about, like adding in yoga, adding in meditation, adding in anything, because we always talk about like workouts as links of a chain. And I think so many times what athletes tend to forget sometimes as well. And we also talk about like the emotional and mental stress that athletes put on themselves. And those two are linked. So like think about it this way. Think about like the race you're trying to really, really train for. That's going to be your biggest race of the year. And you just really that's it. It's your A race for the year. It's what you want to do the best at. And so what's holding that up, or what's going to eventually pull that up to where you want it to be, is more than just one chain, more than just physical chain. It's the mental chain, it's the emotional chain, it's the life chain, and then the physical chain. All four chains are going to be what's going to allow you to lift this up to where you want it to be. You can't always overload them, or you can't totally neglect one, because what's going to happen is it's going to break. And so many times we take this is like because again, like so many athletes have this two phrases come to mind is your body doesn't care and has no, your body has no conception of the timeline and the goal in which your mind has placed on it. Just because you told just because you made up this date and you created this race and you signed up for it on this day and you expect this, you know what? Your body doesn't care. It runs on its own, and it should. And if it doesn't, and you run it to the ground, you're going to break it. But that's what athletes do. And I have to have this conversation sometimes with athletes. I'm like, your body doesn't care that you signed up for a marathon in 90 days. It doesn't mean it's going to be ready just because you want it to be ready. Just because you mentally thought you could skip some steps and had to do it and made a poor decision doesn't mean your body is going to react perfectly in the way that you want it to. And the other one is, don't let your race play in your body. Let your body play in your race. But so many times we want to force feed. Again, it's a different quote for the same problem. It's just a lack of understanding of how everything is so interconnected and how one thing can totally break off one chain and then negatively affect, or if you deal with it positively, can positively affect the other one. So when you add little things in like yoga or meditation or getting a massage or seeing somebody new or changing up, running this or riding this and a new position or swimming this, and you add these things, I'm like, you're already under a tremendous amount of fatigue and a tremendous amount. Why are you adding things that are going to make your body say, wait, I'm already having trouble standing up? I'm giving an example. It's kind of like you get off the bike of doing a hard workout, and I ask you to get off and ask you to close your eyes and stand on one foot. And it's going to be hard to balance, right? Because you're doing something totally different. Now, what a lot of triathletes like to do is say, oh, you know what? That was hard. So let me get off the bike. Let me actually have you spin me around 17 times, and then let me see if I can stand on one foot.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be even worse. And so again, it just goes back to like taking in recovery, like in the big book, you're supposed to do like a very intense daily personal moral inventory of like your entire day. And as triathletes, I think if we spent more time doing a total inventory each day and each morning about what do we do, what do we not do, what's going to set ourselves up for success, and actually thought through things before we neglected this or neglected this niggle that's been present for weeks, and then all of a sudden it turned into something more severe. And what would have happened if we just decided to take 2 or 3 days off here or address it a month ago? We might not be in this position. Or what led us to overtraining or being stressed out? It's because we probably went for a run we shouldn't have. And it's a constant when you're in a position, and when you're in, and I know it's difficult because when you're in a build phase or a peak phase or for whatever race it is, you're at critical mass, and you feel like anything that I miss is going to have this huge negative effect on the end all be all of race day, when it's never the week, and it's never the day, and it's never even the session. It's the months and the months and the months and the months. And so when we take a step back and we realize that it's so cumulative in such small little pieces, and that we can't take 6 months off and then in 3 weeks prepare to be back and ready, then I think we're better off realizing how we do have more time to give into ease into things, whether it's easing into yoga, easing into meditation, easing into a different style or different mechanics in swim, biking, and running. And it takes a while. And I think once we allow ourselves, but we're so in a rush for everything to get to be perfect, to be fast, to reach this goal, to do this event, when we just blindly do it and agree to it or sign up for it without really taking a deep inventory of actually where we are with life. And I've been doing this for 4 years and I still plan on doing it for the next 4. So why am I in a rush to do this in 4 weeks?
Yeah, it's a great question.
And it can get you into so much trouble early in the year, in the middle of the year, and as the year goes on, in terms of adding things to a plate, or just finally like recognizing and understanding that you as a person may be at your max.
Mm-hmm.
So you sign up for an Olympic, you sign up for a half, and you find yourself, this is all I got. This is Mike's, this is Robbie's critical mass for right now in life. And so maybe that critical mass allows me to compete and be healthy and really nail and do my best and feel good with minimal amounts of guilt, with minimal amounts of being disappointed, and with staying super healthy. This allows me to really execute and do the best I can at Olympic distances or 70.3s. But if I'm obsessed with keeping that, like you got to keep you can't keep your triathlete card if you don't do an Ironman thing, but I got to do a full this year. Mm-hmm. And then now you've totally pissed that all away. And you're going to be, for the next weeks and months, you're going to be teetering on this line of overtrained or burnt out or mentally and emotionally done, and you're going to be setting yourself up for failure. Because there is I work with, I think, 3 or 4 athletes right now who we have just basically decided as a team. And I love this. I think it's great for athletes. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and I 100% support it. That have basically determined that they have no plans on racing this year, and they are just going to start focusing on what it's going to take for them to reach X amount of potential or X race or complete this distance or this event next year. And they're 100% totally fine, because again, it's a process that I feel like you have to fall in love with, but still, it's understanding, and you'd be amazed at like the sense of relief these athletes have when we finally have this discussion. And like, I could care less if you race this year. Like, yes, do I want you to race eventually? Sure, because I think you need to, and you need to see where you're at, and I think it's fun, and I think we need to, they're great benchmarks, but you don't have to race 5 times a year. You can race once a year, and that'd be fine. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. It's about setting you up for success. And so the amount of relief that these athletes have, like, oh wait, I don't have to wake up every day and trying to press. I don't pretend I have to fit like 30 hours in a 24-hour day. I don't feel like I have to always do 16 hours of training or 10 hours of training and be ready for this race. It's just understanding where you are and who you are, and being objective and having that level of self-awareness that, again, is not going to just positively affect your life as a triathlete, but it's going to positively affect the life of you as a person and your family and your friends and your work, to not have this, like, because we all know this, if we've competed for any length of time or we've signed up for this huge race that's, for a lot of athletes, a year away, is just the amount of like mental and emotional space that it takes up. I mean, I know I can remember the first one I signed up for. I thought about it for hours every day. And I know you did too. Like when we first started working together, it's
like an understatement.
Yeah, I know it's probably an understatement. It's like you probably thought less about life than you did about Wisconsin, and I think that's totally 100% normal for athletes doing their first one. I think it's just normal. You just do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the more you do them, sometimes that stays, and you feel weird and uncomfortable if you don't have that thought, that thing you can think about and obsess about, and so I think it's just it's a hard transition for athletes to it's like withdrawal in a way, but it's just amazing what removing that mental and emotional space and energy, like once you remove it, how sometimes like relieved and happy your athletes are, because again, like going back to your first one, it's amazing how much mental and emotional real estate a race can take up in your mind.
Yeah. I mean, it does, man. It just takes over. And then, like you said, even if, like, I still get that feeling sometimes, it's not as exuberant, but it's still weighing out there, And what a wise, I don't know if I say wise or what it is, decision to be able to step back and say, hey, I'm not going to race this year. Because, like, if you can sort of get back in that and really start looking at the big picture of everything and how your body is is evolving and getting stronger and being healthier and just being happier in general. I mean, the way things are, you could get towards the end of the year and say, you know what, I'm in really good shape. Maybe I could race right now. And the way things are open, man, you could do a little race or something like that. But the idea that you don't put that out there as the carrot and you can genuinely find passion in the process, there's a lot of power there, man.
Oh, there's huge. I mean, do you want to have like intermediary goals and things you can do along the way? Sure. But I think there's this like obsession and like and social norm of, well, it doesn't really count if it's not a full or a half. Like, what happened to just like, because racing is an experience, no matter how short it is, no matter how long, it's an experience, and there's something to be learned from every single one of them. And I think that sometimes we forget that, like, and again, I think this is one of the biggest areas of improvement that we could all have as triathletes, and then especially as when triathletes get into the sport, is one of the biggest issues with jumping right into a full is that everything else almost feels unfulfilling. And so when you go from, it's like it's going from high school to college. Like, your first semester in college is not going to be the rest of your life. It's like, newsflash. You're actually at some point going to have to, like, study and like work, and like take a lot of hours and probably get a part-time job. It's like, that's just not real life. But when you jump in so quick and you immediately establish this relationship with triathlon and with the lifestyle and with how much it should consume in your brain and how much thought you put into it and the standard in which you hold yourself to. When you start with that, then I don't want to say you become addicted to it, but you have like almost a dysfunctional relationship with what being a triathlete or your every other year should look like. Because now you've associated being a triathlete in your life and the athlete that you are within triathlon as the precipice, and the end result every year should be an Ironman. And not only does it have to be an Ironman, but guess what? I better be faster.
You got that.
Yeah, and so you have that working with you the first year, which I think is what establishes, like, this obsession with never missing things. You're on this totally different level. And then again, I think that's why you see so much of a sophomore slump with athletes, is that now it's kind of gone. And then reality sets in. And then your wife is like, you thought you were doing one of these every year? No, you're not. Maybe every other year. It's like, unless you're like my wife and you tell me we're going to go to Disney every other year, and now we're going to go 4 years in a row. But that just tells you who's in charge. So, but I think it's like, that's like for athletes who jump in this early and go straight to a full, they struggle. They struggle with kind of reimagining who they are within the sport when a full isn't there and even a half isn't there. And it's a total adjustment period. And I know that it might sound like way more like I'm over dramatizing it, but listen, I deal with these athletes every single day, and there's a reason that there's a post Ironman like depression that they joke about. It's not a joke; it's 100% fact. And so imagine that when they like, oh, I can't do it, or I'm not going to do it. And like, you're like, well, if I can't train for an Ironman, then what am I going to do? Oh, I don't know. Just keep training and getting better and be faster. But it's a hard relationship for a lot of athletes, not all of them, but for a lot of athletes to be comfortable with, because then what happens is that if they can't have the big apple, then they don't want any apples, and they'll just stop training. Or it's like, I'm only going to train if I have this huge thing ahead of me, or I can do a full, or I can do a half. I work with a lot of those, and I also work with a lot of athletes who are just very objective. Like, I'm not doing this here. I need to work on getting faster. I'm in this to be the best I can be, and to prove to myself that I can do this and that I can just really try and reach my full potential. And if you're focused on that versus focused on getting back that same feeling, I hate to break it to you, you're never going to have it again. You're never going to have that first Ironman feeling again. You're just not, because it's totally different, and they're all going to be different after that. You're just not going to have it. It'll be different. You're just not going to have the same one.
Right. So, all that said, and I think maybe next cast we can get into this a little bit, because we do have a lot of people racing this weekend.
We do.
A big race down in Texas, and then there's other races that we have athletes doing. But I just, we talked a lot about, it's okay to not race and whatever, but there are a lot of people racing, obviously. And I think that one thing I keep hearing, you kind of know that's going to bubble up and it's always going to happen, is there's these little anxieties that come in before the race. And I thought maybe next time we can talk on those a little bit, about just certain ways you can kind of calm down that day and, go into it with a little bit more peace of mind and let the day come to you, sort of thing.
Well, we can touch on it real quick, because by the time we do it, they're going to have sat through four anxiety-riddled days of unknown and questioning their entire experience in triathlon.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and touch it quick. The first thing is, what are you going to do about it? What do you honestly feel like you being anxious and stressed out how is that going to positively affect anything that you're doing for the rest of the week, and how is it going to positively affect your race? It's not. The people who do the best on race day are the people who don't respond or don't make a decision until it's absolutely necessary. They don't make changes on the Monday before the race. They don't make changes the morning of. They don't they don't assume the worst is going to happen. Again, it's like the quote I use so many times. It's like, why are you living in a problem that doesn't exist? But we once we get so close to something that's so very important to us, we create these thoughts and these feelings of almost, I don't say it's like negativity on purpose, but that's what anxiety is. It takes up emotional and mental real estate in your mind, and then you obsess about it. And it does nothing but take away and zap positive energy from your body. You've worked 8, 12, 16, 20 weeks for this huge goal, and you've put in so much good work that what is the point in stressing about it and worrying about it? Because even if you're questioning it, there's nothing to do about it up until you can't go out and go out for a 6-hour ride in a marathon after and prove it to yourself 4 days out. All you can do is be committed to doing the best you can do. And there's only 2 things you should focus on race day on race day. It's giving your best effort and executing to the best of your ability. Because there's so many times as athletes and as people, we judge who we are and what we do and how good we are when we compare ourselves against other people. When the only thing that matters is our effort. Because if you're that guy who would rather be second place and on the podium and have raced shitty, and you put forth a crappy effort, versus you feeling like you raced totally out of your mind, everything that you had, and you ended up you've got done with, you know what, I emptied the tank today, and you came in 8th. What are you going to feel more fulfilled about? Long term, not short term, long term. What are you going to feel most fulfilled about? And I think most people would say, okay, maybe in for a split second, when I get to stand on the podium or I get to have this award and I show it on Facebook, yeah, I'll have this award and it'll feel great. In the back of your mind, what is it that you really care about? You care about those things that they're also they're about your ability and your achievement, but they're also about who showed up, or the day, or luck or not luck, or is it about what's going to allow you to sleep at night? And that's the effort that you gave, and were you really truly happy with it?
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that no one else can affect. Those are things that no one else can touch. No one else can affect it on race day. The weather can't touch it. The wind can't touch it. The heat can't touch it. Flat tires can't touch it. Volunteers can't touch it. Nothing. Wetsuit or no wetsuit, none of that can actually directly affect your ability and your intention on giving your best effort and executing to the best of your ability on that day. So you are actually, in fact, totally in control of those two things. The rest, you're not in control of. So instead of worrying about the other 478 things you're going to email your coach about that are total ifs and what ifs and I don't knows, spend all your time focusing on the two things that you can control. And they're going to have the biggest impact on the outcome for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Your effort and your execution.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else.
Yeah. I know for me personally, it helps, and it's very difficult to do because you always want to kind of like sort of try-calc the whole thing and have these expectations in your mind about where you want to be and where you want to end up and everything like that. But it helps for me to, if I can get my mind wrapped around just lowering my expectations a little bit and being realistic and setting that out, and then just starting the race slow, starting every part of it slow, in a way under control, and then because you never know, because I think just the general, at least in my experience, if I have X miles per hour in my head on the bike or certain time for the swim on my head, and I don't hit those as the race unfolds, or I'm losing them, or I'm having trouble with it, or on the run especially, if you have sort of this unrealistic kind of best case scenario of all, mankind kind of coming together, and you see that slipping away, that creates anxiety in race as well. And to me, it's always good to lower expectations a little bit and think about it super realistically. I mean, really step back and go, okay, come on. I've never done this before. What is a really honest, realistic goal? First time, I raced, in the back of my mind, I had Kona. I wanted to shock the world. But that becomes a ridiculous burden to carry. So if you go out there and you know that you don't have to start that run, clipping 9 or 8:30s off for the first, 10 miles because that's the only way you're going to hit such unrealistic goals, you're in better shape if you can come out of there and just relax into the beginning of that run. And like I was talking to some athletes too, because it's going to be super hot at Texas, we think. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the marathon is a long race, man. It's a long run. Most of us haven't even done it going into that race, especially after riding for 6 or 7 hours. So the first 5 miles aren't really that big of a deal. That's a really good time to cool down, to get your core temperature back to where it is so your body can function normally as a cooling device. Mm-hmm. Because if you're overheated like a radiator coming out of the gate and within 2 miles, the rest of that race is going to be a nightmare.
Yep.
You just can't cool down after that. So if you can't cool down, you really have to focus on that. I've been through it on both sides where I've been cautious and where I haven't been cautious and I overheated very soon. And you just can't catch up. Yep. And it becomes the worst experience. So at the very least, let's try not to make this the worst experience.
The first 5 miles of your run are the most important 5 miles. Yeah. Because they will lead to your ability to either run or not run the last 5 miles. And you should treat them as such. Even though in the moment you'll be most excited to run the first 5, I guarantee you your memory of those first 5 will quickly vanish.
Yep. During
those last 5. If you have gone out way too fast, especially in a hotter climate, and you've gone too hot on the bike, it is about being cool and staying cool. It is not about trying to get yourself to cool off. Because once you've reached that point, you're in trouble. And it's about, you have to throw, if it's going to be really, really hot, you have to throw your goals. Again, it just goes back to what I was saying. Like, it's about execution and effort. The best ability you have on this day. You can't control the weather. You can control your execution. You can control the effort. Be smart. and just think, today I'm going to work my plan, I'm going to give my best effort within that plan, and I'm going to be smarter than every other athlete out there. And I guarantee you, if you do all those things, then you'll end up having a really, really, really great day.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you come out on that run and you believe, or you feel like you have to focus so hard just to get going, and you can't look around and say hi and wave to people and say thanks to volunteers or whatever, you're probably setting yourself up for a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're in that, I got to focus, I got to hold tight right here, right away out on that run, it's trouble brewing, man.
Yep.
I mean, you can do it, but it's just going to be a cluster of a day.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We don't do clusters.
We don't do clusters. Speaking of clusters, I mean, of course, you're taking off. You're leaving me here with the NFL draft and the country music marathon and millions of people coming. They're calling this the biggest sporting day in the history of Nashville. And I don't know why an NFL draft would do that. Although I saw a guy yesterday, they're coming in already. And there's a guy out there proudly wearing his New York Giants football jersey on the Greenway yesterday. And I just was like, this dude's in for the draft, man. Number 1 pick or whatever I think they have. I don't even know.
People are celebrating being horrible.
It's just so weird to me, man. Dudes.
If you're pumped about the draft, your team's terrible. So I mean, I get it. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan. Our team's terrible, but I couldn't care less about the draft because the draft is so overrated. I mean, it's so overrated in terms of like when you look like 3 or 4 years down on like who was actually drafted in the first round and who's actually good, and then like the Pro Bowlers all end up being like 3rd and 4th rounders. Just shows how much like how overpaid. Like, listen, NFL scouts are just like weathermen. It's all about, and like sports analysts, they predict and they make these assumptions. The same people that said Tiger Woods would never win another tournament, he should retire, and the weatherman who says it's going to storm tomorrow and ends up being sunny, and the NFL scouts who said this is the can't miss number 1 quarterback of all time. Yeah, Jamarcus Russell. Thanks.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for the Raiders? And basically every other team, that does stuff like that. But yeah, I'm glad I'm not going to be here. It sounds like a miserable time. And I'll be.
They built do you see that complex they built? You probably haven't been downtown.
No, heck no. What do you mean I've been downtown? No.
They built a completely new building along the riverfront, temporary, for this thing. It's like a 5-story complex all along the river.
Everything that's wrong with this country.
Yeah.
Well, with this city. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll bend over and do whatever it takes to get money rolling in here.
Exactly. And
Cut
then
down the whole, row of cherry trees.
Yep.
Put up a big building.
Sold parking to a company for $30 million.
What?
Yeah, they did that. But the next weekend, which is even more important, is our first triathlon camp of the year. Yeah. So this is kind of Nashville was like, you know what, the first Crushing Iron C26 camp is the first week of May. We might want to, lighten the load and have the country music marathon, the NFL draft, and a Jimmy Buffett concert in one weekend, and maybe even a Preds game, and just to get everybody kind of softened up for when the athletes roll into town.
But they're calling that the second biggest sporting weekend.
That's right.
Our triathlon camp.
They'll change it once we get there. But yeah, that's this next weekend. Had a couple emails this morning about the August camp and then swim camp at the end of May. So if you want more information on an August camp that we have, May and June are sold out. August is available. Email me directly, and then swim camp is at the end of May here in Nashville as well, and you can email me both about those at c26coach@gmail.com. And then if you have any other interest about all the other things that we do and provide, you can always go to our one-stop shop, that is crushingiron.com. And if you want to talk to Mike about the NFL draft, cherry blossom trees, meditation, or yoga, or his Amazon tracking history, you can email him directly at crushingiron@gmail.com.
Yeah. Or, now we have a new tier program for our coaching plans on the website. If you go to coaching, under that tab, there's a pricing tab. And we have one called the customized plan coaching, which is getting a lot of interest now. And essentially, it's Coach Robbie customizing your weekly workouts based on what you did the week before, what you're going to be going. And then it also gives you complete access to communication with me. So it's
which is much more.
it's pretty good. I mean, I'm just here if you need me, if you got any questions, if we can talk things through. And then you got the experience of coach designing your workouts. It's a pretty sweet combo.
Hey, we try.
crushingiron@gmail.com. Hit me up on that.
Yeah, and if you're going to be in Texas, hit me up. You can shoot me a message on Facebook. I'll be down there. We got 9 athletes across the club and the team participating. I'll be down there on Wednesday. So shoot me a text, shoot me an email, look for me out on course. I'll have a C26 shirt on, one of our gray hats more than likely, and let's be honest, I'll probably be in a pair of blue shorts. And it's going to be vacant out there with the beard. So talk to me, stop me, please say hello. And pumped to do it, pumped to see it, pumped to be at the race. And then it's full board for triathlon camp in May, Chattanooga 70.3 in May, swim camp in May. Whew. May's a good month. It's one of my favorites. And we'll see you on Thursday.
All right, buddy. Sounds good,
all right,
man.
See you, dude.